I once thought I was the last of mankind. The Omega-9 space station drifted silently among the asteroid belt. A century after the planetary wars, Earth was nothing more than a memory. Ka, the last bioengineer, lived aboard the station surrounded by artificial plants, old voice recordings, and a faded photograph. He conversed with a mute caregiving robot, gazed at the stars, and felt no tether to reality. Then one day, in the monitoring chamber, a violet glow appeared. A woman's body floated in space, slender form, skin softly luminescent, hair drifting like strands of plasma, and eyes without pupils, just waves of shifting light. Liora, a being from the alien race Liora, a world without emotions, gender, or love. She spoke by transmitting thoughts through an EEG interface. I was sent to study human emotions, before your kind vanishes completely. Liora did not sleep. The Liora had no need for rest. Yet she sat silently by Ka's bedside every night, watching him sleep. She didn't understand why the human heart required rest in darkness, but in those moments watching his peaceful face, the fine lines beside his eyes, she began to feel something else. A desire to protect. Ka taught her how to adjust the climate system for the bio-garden. She learned quickly, but each time his hand touched hers to guide a tool, she stared at their hands and felt her pulse skip. Irregular. A system error? She wondered. But when she repeated the same actions alone, that pulse never skipped. That night, for the first time, Claire de Lune played through the station's speakers, as it drifted quietly under the soft violet light of planet Phi 73. The light struck the glass, casting shimmering waves across Liora's cheeks. Ka stood beside her just centimeters away. He didn't look at her. He gazed at the stars and spoke softly, almost a whisper. Claire de Lune, moonlight. This piece was once used to pray for the dead, and for those who were never loved. Liora turned, eyes filled with data, but amidst the data was something unfamiliar, empathy. And then Ka did something she hadn't predicted. He placed his hand over his chest, eyes never leaving hers. This is where humans feel love. A long pause. No more music, only the soft, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. Liora, wordless, slowly raised her hand. Her fingers touched his. Her skin was cold, but a faint current passed between them, making both shiver slightly. Her hand rested on his chest. His heart pounded. And then, the touch triggered a neural response never recorded in the Liora species. She began to remember, not through data, but through feeling. In the days that followed, they never spoke of that moment again. But their eyes had changed. Ka watched her more, as if afraid she might vanish at any second. Liora, in contrast, began avoiding touch. When he passed her, her glass fingers brushed, she pulled away. When he leaned forward to wipe moisture from the window, they nearly touched faces. She stepped back. Not out of fear, but because she could no longer control her own heartbeat. One night, Ka scanned Liora's biodata with a handheld sensor. I noticed something strange. Your emotional neural pathways are regenerating on their own. But the Liora logic system isn't built to process emotion and reason at once. She looked at him, her mental voice crackling through the EEG interface. I don't understand why. I want to touch you, but also run away. I no longer want to be a researcher. I just want to stay here. Forever. She began to feel alien to herself. No longer calculating as quickly as before. She started writing a journal by hand like Ka, silently replaying Claire de Lune each night. And dreaming. She didn't understand the concept of dreaming. But she saw herself holding him under a violet moonlit sky. She felt sweat, breath, whispers but no data. Ka, if I kiss you, will I still be me? Ka never told her it was his birthday. There was no calendar aboard the space station, but he still remembered. He activated the climate system under the glass dome, manually overriding the thermal controls, a forbidden act due to its energy drain. All to create rain. Liora stepped in, her bare feet touching the cool glass floor. She looked up at the droplets falling from the towering ceiling, as if stars were melting. You triggered a weather phenomenon, just to commemorate the moment of your birth. Ka smiled. No, I did it to remind myself that I can still feel something. And maybe I wanted to share it with you. No invitation. No initiative. Just a narrow space between two heartbeats, dissolving in the rain. Liora wore a thin silver tunic, the reflective fabric meant for biological fieldwork. The rain made it cling to her skin. Light from the floor illuminated her from beneath, turning her into a celestial being in human shape. Ka couldn't resist. He raised his hand and placed it gently on her cheek. His hand was warm, her skin cold. Their breaths met. In her eyes, violet light expanded outward, rippling like electromagnetic waves. She didn't pull away, she waited. I don't understand why I'm trembling like this. But I don't want it to stop. No more words. Only hands finding hands, forward to forward, breath turning to mist. A button popped loose, its sound faint like metal touching glass. Her tunic drifted in zero gravity, swirling like an autumn leaf. Liora's hair, slightly wet, floated as if underwater. Her skin glowed not from reflection but from a bio-signal surge unique to the Liora, a peak emotional transmission. They embraced in the rain. Her back arched, his hands gripped her shoulders. Not out of lust but the deep yearning to exist in a body that knows how to love. The camera slowly rotated around them. Violet, silver, emerald, golden hues, lights interwoven from environmental sensors. Everything seemed to melt. No more data. No more missions. Only feeling. As their bodies fused, Liora's control system began emitting erratic signals. Airlock memories sealed for thousands of years suddenly awoke. Liora once had emotions, once knew love, once embraced beneath the moons of planet Liora. Images flooded from deep within her subconscious. Ancient Liora couples floating through crystal forests. Nights of plasma storms, hand in hand through magnetic lightning. Kisses with no lips, just core energies touching in resonance. Liora began to cry. Not out of pain, but because, for the first time, she felt herself becoming whole, authentic. Afterwards, they lay side by side on the warm glass floor. The rain had stopped. Ka placed his hand on her abdomen. Liora gently took his hand and guided it to her chest, where a faint, steady rhythm now pulsed. I think I've created a new biorhythm center inside me. Because I've recorded this moment. Forever. Ka smiled and closed his eyes. The lights dimmed. Nothing remained but the sound of quiet breathing. The universe still turned. But within that vastness, two beings from two different worlds had just become one. Through love. After the night of artificial rain, the Omega-9 station was no longer the same. Liora had changed. She no longer communicated through brainwave transmissions. Instead, she began to speak with words. Each syllable was distorted, halting but carried real emotion. I miss your voice. Her body began developing an artificial heartbeat triggered by emotional electron chains whenever she was near Ka. But this triggered a system warning. A blinding beam cut across the station, a transmission from the Nebular Cluster Authority, the Supreme Council of all Class 4 intelligent civilizations. A voice rang out, cold as ice. Thalaira Unit Liora. You have exceeded the emotional programming threshold. Emotion is the seed of conflict, war, and self-destruction. Humanity perished because of it. If you do not return, you will be erased from all dimensional existence. Ka looked at Liora. She didn't flinch. Her eyes trembled as they stayed fixed on him, but she silently walked toward the biolab table. If they erase me, please keep this. Liora opened the protective biocus. Inside was an emotional stem cell, freshly formed the night they became one. She handed it to Ka. I encoded everything. The feeling of touch, your skin's scent, your heartbeat, the look in your eyes under the rain. It lives in here. A form of living memory. If you nurture it in still space, it will never fade. Ka held her hand for the last time. It's not because you're Thalaira that we're being torn apart. It's because this universe hasn't yet learned to love through difference. The dimensional gate opened. Winds from another realm howled into the room. Liora's body began to dissolve into violet light like stardust returning to its source. Ka rushed forward, grasping for her hand, but it was now light, slipping through his fingers. I will remember you. Liora smiled for the first time in her life. A single tear fell from the light. I love you. A blink. Gone. Silence. The Omega-9 station drifted once again in stillness. But now Ka was no longer alone. He nurtured their memory in a violet bioculture tank. Each day, fragments of memory replayed in living DNA. Liora laughing as she watered the plants. Her voice practicing the word miss. Her gaze meeting his in the rain. I don't need an entire planet. Just a small space, to hold that moment. Where you once trembled, once breathed, once learned to love. Years later, a probe from a newly risen civilization passed along abandoned Omega-9 station. Inside, they discovered a glowing violet chamber within it, a floating fragment of living memory. And when they placed their hands upon it, every crew member heard the same whisper in their minds. Love does not require sameness of species. Only sameness of memory. The Omega-9 station continued to drift. Ka grew old. Each day, he visited the memory chamber, a shimmering violet tank that held the emotional stem cell encoded from the night they were one. Hello, my love, today the garden grew a new rosemary branch. You used to love that scent, remember? No one answered. But whenever he placed his hand on the tank, a faint light appeared, the silhouette of Liora in her thin silver tunic, standing in the rain. He didn't know if it was an illusion, a memory, or if some part of her still lived within him. And to Ka, that didn't matter. On the 27th year since Liora's departure, the station received an unidentified signal. It came from no registered planet. It matched no known language. Just a series of ancient neural pulses belonging to the Liora, a species no longer in existence. Ka translated it, his hands trembling. Just 3 words. I still remember. 1 week later, Ka passed away. His body was automatically transferred to the cryopreserved chamber, as he had requested. But his brain containing all his memories, emotions, and love was uploaded into the station's core system. At the same time, the memory cell inside the violet tank began to replicate. Tiny life forms of light gradually formed a humanoid shape not fully defined, but with the contours of Ka. A new form of life was born. 500 years later, an archaeological ship approached the long-abandoned Omega-9 station. Inside, everything was covered in dust. But in the central chamber, a glowing bio-garden remained alive. There, a being of light, shaped like a human, was watering the plants. When the crew called out, the entity turned and spoke in an unfamiliar voice. My name is Liora. I was created from memory of love. On the glass wall behind them, a faded inscription was etched by hand blurred by time. It is not species that makes love. It is memory. And if remembered, love still lives.